What's up, nerds? I'm Jordan, and this is A Line in the Stars. And I'm introducing to you today a new series, the Eaglemoss Hero Collector's Build Series of the USS Enterprise 1701D. Now, I'm super excited to bring this to you today. A while back, I had the chance to sign up through Fanhome for this program where you spend a lot of money and you get to build a really nice Enterprise. So, without further ado, let's start talking about the model and start talking about some things. But first, I have to say, a lot has happened since the last time we brought you a video. Picard Season 3 has happened, and I have to say that, we'll get into the actual podcast side of things eventually. But for now, I have to say that Season 3 of Picard happened to have been maybe one of the best Star Trek seasons ever. And there's a particular point here at, get towards the end of the story, and it's been interesting so far, but we all heard the rumors. We all knew. The Enterprise D was going to be in the season, and there was this moment in Season 3 where Geordi is bringing the crew to Athen Prime for, their last hope at saving the fleet, and he brings them to Hangar 12. And up comes this image. It's dark, and it lightens up a little bit, and we all knew this was coming. And there was something to be said about having this come up on screen, and just, she's a beautiful thing, isn't she? So, as we go into the next episode, in this episode 10, we come up on this image, and when she's flying onto the screen, it's just the most gorgeous model. The digital modeling of the Enterprise D for the first time, man, I have to say, it gave me chills. It was very reminiscent of, seeing it for the first time on screen. And so I'll just kind of dig into it and get into it deep. But needless to say, seeing that while waiting for this subscription program to start showing up just made me all the want to do this more. So, as I can say, I had no intention of actually doing any sort of recording. I took up a couple pictures, meant to show Matt, and in the process of it, I'm like, I bet you I could do some recording of this, and we can do some videos. But I didn't record anything the first time. All I have are pictures for you. So, nothing was done for unboxing. I'm not a professional. I am a novice YouTuber at best. But once the box showed up, it was exciting. The box is nice and purple. You'll see it in the next video. But opening it up, the first thing you see is the magazine. And it was sitting right here on top. And just a little bit about this program. I'll link down to the description below to Fanhome and how to purchase this. It's going to be very expensive, and that's the thing that I'll make kind of clear as we're going along for the video. But, basically Fanhome took over from the company that was originally distributing this, and it's a monthly subscription program. And so this is the first subscription, which for $8 you get the first 2 stages in this beautiful magazine. And inside there are some pretty cool things where you get to see, the design of the Enterprise and what Andrew Probert was thinking about as he is going through in designing the Enterprise D, and the inspiration that he took from the refit Enterprise, which eventually became the refit, basically the Constitution II class. And, in this first magazine, what's really interesting, too, is there's a segment inside where it's talking about, some of the bridge design. And, at some point we'll talk a little bit more about just the magazine. I think it'd be pretty cool to go into. But the concepts that they had laid out for this was, could have been game-changing for Star Trek in a lot of ways, as you can kind of see here, where there's, an above area where people can observe the command crew as they're working through, and lounge seating and stairs, very strange. So anyway, the magazine's the first thing that you see, and as you pull out the pieces, it's kind of a big box for the small stages, but it's really well packaged. Everything feels like it's really safe and secure. And as you can see here, this is going to be stage 2 with the magazine for scale, so it's a regular full-size magazine size. That's just the nacelle, so it's kind of insane to think about, how large the model's going to be. It's going to be 28 inches after everything is said and done, so it's kind of insane to think about. Here we have the stage 1, which is going to be the first one that we're going to bring to you today. And inside you have the one screwdriver that everything is going to be built with. It's kind of crazy to think about. One thing about the packaging is it was very well thought out and put together. Very much reminded me of when you're a kid and opening up just random packaging. It was pretty cool. Not random packaging, excuse me. When you're a kid and you're opening up, like you buy a toy and it's got a little toy gun in it, and the packaging is all molded and precisely for each piece. My only knock would be that, I would say that it would have been better to have the piece letters imprinted on the back of the plastic, because there came a certain point during this build, one of the later steps here, where it does get a little confusing as to which part is which. Probably my only knock throughout this whole first step here. So here you can see a little bit more of a close-up as I'm getting ready to build. And keep in mind, once again, I'm taking pictures. I'm not worried about quality. I'm not worried about what you can see in the photo. I got YouTube playing. Shout out to Phil Race, who happens to be one of my favorite YouTubers. But kind of going back into it, so I just want to say that this is not professional, and I can do the best that I can to kind of crop. But this is a little bit more of a close-up of what we're going to be working with for stage 1. And I guess here we go. So kind of leading into it, here is the parts list for the first stage, and it's all laid out in what's eventually going to be 131 stages. I did some math today, and it's going to be pricey. We'll talk more about it, but here are the 2 part sets for stage 1 and stage 2. I'll have this image up a couple times here. But everything's nicely laid out. My only complaint is that there's no lettering on the packaging itself, and some of these parts are kind of ambiguous at best. They look like they're the same color, but they're not. One is clear, one is not. It's interesting. So once again, kind of my only knock against the whole system. But with that being said, however, the quality of the parts is out of control, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go along. Going into the first step here, it was actually really simple. It was just affixing a small metal piece onto another small metal piece. This, however, is when I really kind of discovered where the quality and why this is going to wind up costing so much in the end. It's made with die cast, and the way the parts fit together, everything was just amazing. I can't describe how amazing it was for just to be able to feel the pieces and have the pieces go together. And note here, though, too, with the screws, all of the screws are labeled individually, have individual purposes. Still have yet to figure out, some of them are labeled AM, for instance, and AP. Don't quite know what that all means, but we'll figure all of that out. There's always extra screws as well, which is really nice. But once you affix the bridge module onto deck 1, which is what the lower section is and would actually encompass where the observation lounge is, once you affix it, it's there. It's complete, and it's really, it feels really secure. One of the things that I was kind of looking at, and over the course of the build here, was the Aztecing. It's very slight, but I can see that The Enterprise D didn't have it. It wasn't until the E came along that the Aztecing was like super hardcore, and they actually went through and did a bunch of, panel marking and like. Anyway, so, but the Aztecing is definitely there, and it looks really, really good. Once again, the quality is just amazing. As we go into the next step, affixing the wires and all of the LEDs was what this stage was all about. And one of the things that I had to say about the whole process was that it was very clear where the wiring goes and how it's supposed to be routed. There are tiny little tabs that are affixed in place, and once you set the wire for the LED in there and you pull it slightly, it kind of, well, not kind of, it kind of sits in place. And then once you put the reflective cover over it, as marked with the yellow pieces here, it felt just incredibly secure. And what was interesting about the yellow pieces, they wind up being, they're actually the yellow pieces on the diagram are actually the silver pieces that you see in front of you. Underneath are the reflectors, and there's no screwing going on here, but they fix very securely in place, and they create the bottoms of what you will wind up being the clear windows that are all going to be lit up later on. As we get into the next step, it's where you're affixing the bottom. Basically, you're taking the entire bridge module and you're affixing it to the plate that goes on to the deck 3 and the beginnings of the main shuttle bay. Pretty simple process. The screws in here were very easy to affix and put into place. And then, once again, everything that went in was just incredibly flush. It looked like there was no seams, like it was all just professionally built. And I can tell you, I am not a professional. I've done some model work before, but like it's been years, and this is nothing like anything that I've ever done. Here in the next step, not the next step. Here you see the top of that, and that's what I mean when I say that like it looks like it was all just built perfectly. Everything is just so neat and clean and tidy. You can see the clear reflective windows there where the LEDs eventually are going to go into, and once the bottom piece that was on, it was well stuck into place. As we go here into the next step, we're taking the LEDs and we are taking the reflector piece here, which is the silver piece, and underneath that there is a plastic piece with pre-darkened windows, and some of them are darkened, some of them are not. You'll see how it is and as we get closer later on. And this is where it was a little confusing. So here on the right side, you see that there are the two black flush vents, and I didn't actually know that's ever what they were, but they are the flush vents. One side is lit, one side is not. And the thing that was confusing, which was which side did you put the clear part on and which side did you not? It took a lot of studying of the diagram to really figure it out. And then there was one black piece that fit in that darkened one side, and then it had the same cover. Both the covers were easy to figure out, but it was which side accepted the reflector and not. It was very confusing. And that's where having the blister pack, or whatever you want to call it, have the proper parts would have been much better. Underneath, like I said, underneath the silver part, there is a clear plate that has windows that are darkened and not, and that's one of the reflector plates. And it does two things. It reflects and then holds the LEDs in place. I'm super curious to see what it's going to look like when it's lit up. Here's what I mean when I say the darkened and lightened windows. And I believe what they did, I read this online, I haven't seen this for sure yet, but they have basically copied the window pattern that they did for the filming model for the Enterprise the entire time. During the entire 7 seasons. And so they never changed the lighting pattern on the ship, and they actually went through scene by scene and copied it. So it's interesting. I wonder how they're going to take that approach throughout the rest of the model. As you can see on the lower section there on decks 3 and 4, all of those windows will light up. There's no black and darkened section, so it looks like it's going to be fully lit up there. And to the bottom right and the bottom left of each one of those pieces, you'll see the flush fence. And I hadn't had it put together right at this point. By the time that I had taken the picture, I had actually gotten frustrated and had to go back and fix it. And as you can see here in this next image, the flush vent on the right side is the one that is lit up, and everything was done correctly. And once again, shout out to Phil Race for being in my shot here. The next stage was to take the bridge module and attach it to the decks 3 and 4 with the main shuttle bay part on the back. It was actually a very simple process, but going through and basically affixing the bridge module to that top part, which I also need to mention is easily, I don't know how many ounces, but it is a heavy piece of metal. Not heavy, but heavy die cast, really high quality metal. The engineering, all of the screw marks, all of the screw plates, it's so incredibly well put together. It's interesting. I'm curious to see how all of the parts are going to fit together. But affixing the bridge module to the lower part, it was like they were made for each other, right? So it was incredibly well put together, and when I affixed it just with the screws, you couldn't tell that there was any difference. Once again, it looked like a very well professionally put together piece. So here you see that. In the next stage, we wound up also taking the sensor ring, which is the gray ring that surrounds the main bridge. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about the Enterprise D, but at the time when it came out, it was the most sophisticated ship with the most sophisticated sensors ever made. And this sensor cluster, I'm not sure exactly what it was from the technical manual, but I do remember that it had something to do with planetary research, but I also could be wrong. But yes, you can actually see the bridge module attached to the top with the sensor dome around the outside. And as you can see here, you got a little bit closer of I guess it would be just a little bit more of a clearer photo of that. Now, the next stage was the one that I was kind of looking forward to the most, and as interesting as it sounds, it was attaching these, which happen to be the escape pods. Now, I was kind of confused. Why? I asked. Why would we want to have the escape pods not just like already on the die-cast part of the model? And the reason became very clear immediately, and it was as soon as I had fixed them. Now, I will say it was kind of confusing. This is an image of what they look like when they're all together. But, as we go over here to the starboard side, each one of the escape pods had a different mounting point and was a specific pod meant for a specific place. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. And as soon as the first one went on, I understood. It offered this contrast in the hull, or I guess it would be the contrast in the hull, where the escape pods are a separate entity and they do separate from the craft, and it definitely gives the impression that they are a separate entity. And as you can see over here on the port side, once again, the attention to detail is just amazing. So yeah, that was the big thing. And as you see here, the underside, once it's all completed, You can kind of see for the escape pods, there's these little off-kilter, off-centered little tabs right near my thumb and the base of my pinky where it just seems like they're kind of randomly placed, and I thought that was very strange, but it's because the escape pods themselves are meant specifically for each one. And so I did take a shot here, and this is going to be the last shot of this first section here. And it's just such a pretty high res shot. I wound up taking this as right before recording, just taking a nice high res shot of the completed first stage, and once again I'm just super impressed with the quality. I can't wait to see what the next stage is going to be like. It is going to be absolutely the next stage set, I should say. We're supposed to get 4 pieces, and as of this moment of recording, I am currently waiting. So, thank you so much for this first section, and I'm looking forward to bringing you the next stage. Alright, so before we get into stage 2, give you a little bit of a history about how this all came to be for me. So, as I said at the beginning of the video, the company that was doing this went out of business. Now, for me, what wound up happening is like 2019, I saw an advertisement for this on Facebook. I signed up for it, and what the deal was is you pay $8 for the first month, and you get the first 2 stages. And then you pay $55 a month every month after that, and you get 4 stages for a total of 32 months and 131 stages. It's kind of insane to think that it's going to take a couple of years to get this done, but then I'm a content creator, and so yay, I have content for the next 3 years, although I'm impatient, so I have to wait for the next 3 years. This sucks. But with that being said, I signed up for the program, and then the program, the people that were running the program went out of business. And I don't know if it was COVID, I don't know what. But they went out of business, and what wound up happening is I basically got put on a waiting list. I never got the first order. And so in March of this year, I got email from Fanhome, which is the new home for the Eaglemoss Hero Collector series for many different things. You got the DeLorean from Back to the Future, you have the Ecto one from Ghostbusters, you can build Toretto's Charger, there's so many different things that you can do through Fanhome. For me, the most important thing was the Enterprise, and so when they offered me the opportunity to do so, I said yes. And, it's been forever, so when the first shipment came out, it was just super exciting. And so, yeah, that's kind of the little history behind how I've been waiting since before the pandemic to do this. And now that we've started this podcast and this YouTube channel, well, here we are. And so, without further ado, as we get on here into the next section, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the parts list one more time. And once again, I will just briefly touch on the fact that I do wish that they had done a little bit better job of laying out what the parts were individually. But the one thing I will say is that the second section here was the stage 2, was much easier to build. It was much less of an in-depth piece. So as we go in here into the close-up of the tray, you can really kind of see the scale of the nacelle itself. Now, the nacelles on the Enterprise D were not the biggest feature, but definitely a distinctive feature. But just for size for reference, like this thing, you'll see it's a bit of a chonky boy, and you'll see later on as we go along. But once again, the packaging in here is absolutely gorgeous. So, the first stage was to install 2 things. On the right side of the picture here, you will see a little black tab. Underneath there there is a red running light. So that tells me, if I believe I'm correct on this one, red running lights will be on the port side. So this is going to be the port side upper half of the nacelle. Underneath there is the running light housing, and I believe it connects to the frame that's put inside, which seems like it's the reflective material that a lot of the model is built out of for the lighting purposes. Also, as well, within the frame, I don't know if you can see it here, but there are tons of tiny little screw holes that eventually are used as you go along. But it's just so incredibly well thought out and well put together. But putting the frame on, you had to, underneath the frame, you had to position the orange piece of the beginnings of the Bussard collector, which is actually not the Bussard collector, but it's the Warp-Field coil, or Warp-Field coil emanator, or Warp-Field emanator, something like that. Anyway, so that is one of the pieces on there. And I'm going to show you here, the tiny little dot there at the very end of the nacelle is the running light, and I just thought it was so incredibly cool. I don't know, I just needed to show you. And once again, you can kind of see the Aztecing and then the RCS thrusters there at the end of the nacelle. Everything is beautifully painted. The decals, all of the paintwork, absolutely incredible and immaculate. As we get in over here, you can kind of see the Warp-Field distributor. I'm not quite sure what that's called, and I'm feeling like an idiot for not. But you can kind of see a close-up, and the next section that we had to do was to install the front piece in front of that, which eventually will hold the Bussard collector. The size, once again, the scaling on this is just kind of crazy. So the next section is going to be, well, I would say the next picture, I guess we should say, is going to be kind of a close-up of the frame of the nacelle itself. The amount of screws that went into this section was kind of insane. It was actually really kind of insane, actually. The amount of screws that are available still after the completed section is just amazing. So I can't wait to see how all of this is put together. From what I understand, each nacelle has its own independent power source, and so in order to turn everything on, I'm assuming that you're going to have to push a few buttons. So here you'll see the completed next couple of sections was to put on the grill, the Warp-Field grill itself. And it was so incredibly satisfying, I have to say, just putting this on. The screw points were actually where you see the blue piece, the Warp-Field coils, or the Warp-Field grill. You see the screw points. Well, they weren't immediately obvious because of just the coloring and the way that everything is done. Just incredibly well put together. So here you see the fitted piece. Before I had attached the blue grill mark, or the grill pieces. In this part I was just trying to highlight the quality of the decal work, and I just love seeing the Aztecing mixing in with the decal work. It's just so incredibly beautiful. Here you can see a side profile with the Warp-Field coils on there, or the Warp-Field grill, excuse me. Really, once again, just nice quality. Really, you can't look through there. You can't really see what's going on, which was kind of a concern. Like, one of the things with cheap models is, they, like the Polar Lights models, for instance, they light up, but unless you take care to properly coat the insides, the light just spills through, a lot of light spillage. So I don't see that happening here. And just another view with everything, just kind of a top-down view with the grills put in place. And the backside with the grills here. I got a little photo happy at this point. And then this is where I say we become chonky boys. So I'm a big boy. Okay, I got big hands, big arms, and holding this thing is quite impressive. It's substantial. It weighs something. It does not feel cheap in any way, and really, like by the end of this whole first couple of stages, the quality of the craftsmanship is just out of control. I am so looking forward to see the completed model here in a couple of years and see just the quality of it. I'm curious to see how much it's going to weigh. I imagine it's going to weigh probably 10, 15 pounds when everything's said and done. The Bussard collector, the cap itself on the end, is not actually part of this stage, but I went ahead and threw that in there just because, I can't have a nacelle put together without at least seeing a little bit of the Bussard collector. In this next shot here, it's just kind of sitting in there, and you can kind of see there's little ridges where the Bussard collector sits in, and both sides are going to have that. The bottom half is going to be probably a much more substantial piece, as it's got to be affixed to the pylons themselves. So here you'll see a very blurry image of the internal pieces and almost the completed internals of this stage itself. I really wish that I had gotten a better picture. Probably could have and probably should have by the time of editing, but, here we are. Here is, with the Bussard collector, the whole top half of the port side nacelle, and I gotta say, it's just a gorgeous piece. Once again, I got big hands, I'm holding it, and that thing is just, it's a chonky boy, for sure. So here are stages 1 and 2 completed, sitting on top of magazine number 1. It's, once again, that's a standard 8 by 11.5 magazine. You can definitely, the pieces are big, they're heavy, super high quality, and, I gotta say, I have 31 more shipments to arrive. That's 31 more months, and I gotta say, for just these first couple of stages, I'm super excited to be bringing this to you. And so from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you guys for your watching this video. Hope you like, subscribe, give me some comments, give me some feedback. This is my first full video that I'm putting out by myself. Pretty proud of what I've done, but I'm always willing to accept some feedback and anything that I could do better. The next video will be a live action, live shots, maybe with some photos, but definitely planning on taking an unboxing video. And I am purchasing some things to actually do proper video recording, getting a better computer, and all of those things. So it's exciting. We've got tons of episodes coming up ahead of you. We're going to be doing, likely with how long each one of these pieces is going to be, if for the next one we get 4 stages, likely each month we're going to be releasing 2 videos for that. And I am looking currently at, I am currently picking up all of the supplies I need to start doing some model work. And I got a couple of regular models that I need to work on, that I really want to work on, but it costs a lot of money to get into that, and I am just destroying myself for financial obligations for this. But hey, I gotta say, it's gonna be amazing. So, to all of you, thank you so very much. Live long, prosper, have the force be it with you, and we can't wait to see you in the next video. Thank you so very much, and goodbye.